You've been waiting all week for that Saturday show. Tune in, see what happened, let your troubles go. Work real hard, now it's time to take it slow. Kick back and relax with that Saturday show.
It's Saturday morning. You're looking at That Saturday Show. One more time, I'm Jim Harvey, your host, and glad to have with me today a co-host. His name is Justin Allen of America Votes, and you'll be hearing from him shortly. But you started off with a little something special today. Just a quick and totally wonderful tribute to Charlie Watts, the drummer of Rolling Stones, who hung up his sticks today and has gone on to the great band in the sky. Bless you, Charlie. We'll miss you. House passes the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill. Now it's up to the Billionaire Persons Club, also known as the U.S. Senate. As Albuquerque prepares to rally today and make its voice known to get those bills passed. State Representative in District 19 gets a new leader. Her name is Kay Borinkea, and we're expecting great things from her. But first, let me get this off my chest. Child murder, the school-to-prison pipeline, and the very wrong police union. A child was murdered by another child at one of our middle schools recently, and shockwaves of grief and sadness and even anger gripped the community. Other children were traumatized, and many are still trying to bounce back from the horrors of just knowing that this tragedy occurred just a few feet away from some of them, and some of them knew the victim. A few days later, 2 police officers were shot, and a couple of other officers were shot later than that, and the community was once again traumatized. I listened to the adult observers and the community members who spoke with rage about the disbelief that the police officers were shot. Who will protect us if there are no police? One woman asked. I think that it's such a tragedy that our police aren't safe, said another. No mention of the child, however. Wait for it. Okay, here it comes. The president of the APD police union saw his opportunity to jump into this conversation. No, he did not speak about the tragic murder of a middle school child. No, he didn't talk about the fact that the shooter was the son of a man with a history of violence who just left his gun out where his 13-year-old son could have easy access to it. No, this union president took this opportunity to attack the efforts that some are making to prevent violence. No, he didn't mention police violence and the scores of police involved in shootings that have never been investigated. This man in blue was only focused on his officers and how he believes that his policing institution is under assault. Well, he's right. His police force is indeed under attack. And this reality is a result of attitudes and behaviors that have brought the U.S. Department of Justice to Albuquerque in the first place. Focused mistrust and questioning by the community, and all at a time where mixed feelings and mixed messages are taking center stage all over this city. Make no doubt about it. There's a need and room for a police presence in our city, but the police are in desperate need of reform. How they do their jobs and what resources are necessary should be the focus of discussions. The police union remains under scrutiny, and instead of embracing the idea of reform, it has chosen to spend upwards of $70,000 to publicly demand the Department of Justice shut down its monitoring and investigations. The DOJ is just what we need at this time, hopefully, if they do their job. The police union wants to turn back the clock on reform and meaningful change in our city, back to a time where the very idea of community policing and alternative approaches to the old lock 'em up behaviors and worse are pushed aside. It is said that the officers that had been shot were probably pretty decent people. But at a time where the very idea of community policing and alternative approaches seem to be pushed into a corner, and there's no discussion about a child that is killed by another child, when you examine these tragic incidents together, they both scream prevention and reforms. Albuquerque Public Schools is complicit in the death of that 13-year-old boy, just as much as they are complicit in the ongoing school-to-prison pipeline that ignores the whole child by failing to equip our kids with negotiating skills and conflict mediation tools and bringing restorative justice services to all schools. APS is complicit in failing to pay attention. Albuquerque Police Department, through its union, is allowing this rogue group to poison the discourse that needs to happen around police reforms and accountability. The union doesn't want to be accountable, but seemingly prefers to continue to engage in conduct that creates bad relationships between community and police. Let there be no doubt about it. We need reform. We need a new union. We need new APS school leadership. We need to figure out how to bring meaningful changes to our police department and our schools, both in the name of saving lives. More force in the absence of accountability just won't do. Well, here we are.
Here we are.
Justin, talk to us about voting rights and talk to us about 1 million prisoners. That in particular, I think we need to spend a little time on today.
Okay. Well, growing up, I never cared about voting rights. I always thought that these systems were designed to destroy me. I've come to understand that disenfranchisement, or I call it human silencing, is a continued mechanism of slavery. Slavery still exists through these mechanisms. They were designed to prevent us from caring about our elected officials, and it has the effect of rendering our bodies silent, and we're basically commodities of the state. For me, voting rights is the difference between being state property and a citizen. I believe that all citizens should vote, even those behind the walls. We're currently doing redistricting in New Mexico, and there was an issue of gerrymandering, prison gerrymandering coming up. Prison gerrymandering isn't an issue in Maine and Vermont because their prisoners are predominantly white and they're allowed to vote. So voting is not a radical concept, or voting for people behind the walls is not a radical concept for white people in Maine and Vermont. When I think about how I spent 17 years incarcerated, and when I think about the conversations I've had and heard, I know that my people don't really care about voting because of the exclusion. When we're excluded from these things, we typically don't care. We're expected to become productive members of society, but we're not allowed to participate as citizens. So, Millions for Prisoners, when I got released, I was invited to one of their events at Roosevelt Park. I want to thank Celinda Guerrero, founder of Millions for Prisoners New Mexico chapter, for giving me the courage to expose some of the violence and injustices that were happening in prison. In 2017, I stood on the Hill and at Roosevelt Park and exposed some of the sexual and physical abuse that was happening in Department of Corrections by staff. So I've never been afraid of the prisoners so much as I am the people that house us. The violence that I've endured and witnessed is unexcusable. One of my abusers just recently killed himself and his wife in Colorado. And that just goes to show what happens when abusers are not held accountable for their actions. You know, that culture of violence that exists in New Mexico Department of Corrections, APD, and Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department is a culture that's been there for years, at least 30 years. I mean, as long as I've been a subject of the criminal punishment system. I've learned that for me, breaking the cycle of recidivism has required me to assert my voice and expose these injustices. When I started speaking out about these things is when I got my life back. I've been out 5 years now. I just recently graduated from the University of New Mexico. My major is American Studies. This for me, graduating has been empowering because it has helped me to understand this system that I've been part of. I personally don't believe reform is going to work. Just based on, I see reform creating a lot of the same issues or recreating the same issues. I'm an advocate for transformative justice, and that's avoiding the criminal punishment mindset. It takes more work than locking people up and throwing us away.
Sure does. Because
it requires us to think critically about alternatives to punishment and manufacturing criminals. So this work is going to be a life's work for me. I've realized that restoring the vote to people behind the walls is not something that is accepted by community. Community believes that we need to be punished. And I argue that our sentence is our punishment. We don't deserve to be stripped of our voice. We don't deserve to be raped. We don't deserve to be beaten and silenced by New Mexico Department of Corrections. I'm currently leading legislation. So back in 2019, Millions for Prisoners introduced a bill that was a transformative justice practice because it would allow individuals behind the walls to vote. Maine and Vermont do not so currently in the state of New Mexico, we are in the process of redistricting, and there's been an issue of prison gerrymandering here in New Mexico. Maine and Vermont do not have an issue of prison gerrymandering because their prisoners are predominantly white and they're allowed to vote. So that's where we're at now. So I believe ACLU might be drawing legislation so we're not in this place 10 years from now to address prison gerrymandering. My solution is to restore the vote to all voices, including those behind the walls, regardless of conviction.
So we've got about 2 minutes left, and there are a couple of things I don't want to lose sight of. One definitely is that later today we've got the Millions for Prisoners rally. Tell us a little bit about that.
So in 2017, I attended my first Millions for Prisoners rally, and I exposed some of the injustice that was happening in Department of Corrections. And since then, I've been organizing and helping with these events because it was how I reestablished my roots and place in society again. And so we're inviting everybody today at 5 o'clock to join us for Millions for Prisoners event, Black August. We will be talking about a lot of innocent people that are still serving time in there. And so we encourage everybody to come and enjoy the food, speakers, and music at 5 o'clock at Roosevelt Park.
5 o'clock at Roosevelt Park. All right. And right after that, and just before that, we're having a voting rights rally, also in Roosevelt Park, that starts at 11, and we'll tell you more about that later. Heavy conversation, everybody, necessary stuff. But I think right now, let's go to Good News News. Hasani, bring us in.
Thank you, and welcome to Good News News. I'm your correspondent, Hasani Olujimi, and I'm Gugu for Good News. The goal of this segment is to inspire and uplift you, the viewer, with nothing but good news. Let's jump right in, shall we? Our first story reads like this. Big congratulations to the New Mexico Asian Family Center, who celebrated their 15-year anniversary on Sunday, August 15th. For 15 years, the New Mexico Asian Family Center has provided culturally sensitive programs and services to the AAPI community. With programs that are centered around leadership, parent and child services, victims and survivors of violence, and civic engagement. We look forward to making opportunities to work together in New Mexico all-inclusive for everyone. The goal of the center reads like this. We believe that we are stronger together and that everyone should have access to culturally tailored care. We bring in trained community interpreters or utilize phone interpretation so that you can receive the best care in the language you are most comfortable. One service that they offer is called Resting Circle. It's every Tuesday from 11:45 to 1:15 p.m. Resting Circle is a weekly gathering for Asian Pacific Islander women of all ages that provides a safe space to rest from violence. The focus of the Resting Circle is on repairing the connection between body and mind, decolonizing yoga and meditation practices, as well as providing a space for rest. The group practices breath work, grounding, meditation, and restorative yoga. Hey, Tanya Covington, restorative justice, restorative yoga, boom! What a wonderful service that is. And the services end with the Resting Circle with a group discussion. This program is free and open to API women. They hold the Resting Circle again on Tuesdays, 11:45 to 1:15 p.m. Now, isn't that good news? Congratulations and happy anniversary. Wonderful work. Thank you. Now, I do have a question for you. Why did the introvert become an astronaut? Because she wanted her own space. And we're moving along. Don't look at me like that. Now, there's a funny video that shows Wally the Walrus appearing to drive a boat that he climbed into during his latest escapade. Let's learn a little bit more, shall we? Wally has been filmed steering a motorboat along the Irish coast as he continues to make a nuisance of himself. The lonely walrus has been on a 2,500-mile solo trip for months and recently spent more than 6 weeks off of Cornwall. Wally is believed to be from north of Norway and to have traveled by himself between Wales, England, and France. But the wandering walrus has now made a home for himself off the Irish coast. And recent footage shows Wally seemingly cruising along the coast on a luxury motorboat belonging to a distillery in West Cork. Seal Rescue Ireland has now launched an appeal for a floating platform for Wally to use as a safe place for him to rest undisturbed. Humans helping animals. Now, isn't that good news? You go on, Wally. Travel on, man. See the world. it's yours. So now let's check in with our favorite sassy grandmother, Little Big Mama. What do you have in store for us today, lady?
Thank you, Hasani. I got a question for your viewers today. What did the mama tomato say to the baby tomato while taking a walk in the park? Catch up! Well, I remember my dear old father used to say that I loved alphabet soup while growing up as a child. I think he was just trying to put words in my mouth. Bye, baby. Bye.
Little Big Mama, you are a blast. The best way to turn a frown upside down is to get Google for good news. I'm your correspondent, Hasani Olujimi, featuring Little Big Mama, of course. We'll see you right here next time on That Saturday Show with more good news.
Thanks for the good news, Hasani. We can always use that. Got to keep us uplifted here. Speaking of uplifting, we are now joined by the fabulous Kareena Washington of the Black Arts Diaspora Roundtable. And this is a woman who has gone from education into Black entrepreneurial, I got to get that word right, entrepreneurial ventures, and has done so much to uplift and educate young people in this town. It's amazing the number of young people that owe so much knowledge and direction to Kareena. Kareena, welcome to That Saturday Show.
Thank you so much.
So tell us a little bit about the Roundtable.
So the Black Diaspora Arts Roundtable is about Black arts, all 7 of them: architecture, fine arts, dance, theater, even filming. And it's all about uplifting the Black arts in a collective environment for Black artists. And especially because in New Mexico, Black artists are so plentiful, but hardly ever seen. So the Roundtable is going to give them a place to be seen in our community.
Yes, I am so glad to hear that. You know, I looked back at how difficult it was to cast Dreamgirls last year, and I still don't think that we did a great job of casting, but it was a remarkable show that ran 11 shows, and every house was packed out. And it was because people were hungry and thirsty to see some Black talent all in one place at one time. Sadly, nothing has happened since then, but I'm so glad you've come along with the Black Diaspora Arts Roundtable, because it sounds like we're going to pick up where we needed to.
So basically, this would be kind of a call for all those Black artists who are hungry. They need to get in contact with me, and we need to start making those lists of what you can do, where you can do it, because we'd like to present our first salon very shortly.
Wow.
So that is something that it'll be on my Facebook, and I'll get it out there to people, and we'll start looking for the webpage. The webpage will be produced shortly to give people an idea of what we're talking about. And it's really time for Black artists to recapture, renew, and reinvigorate the New Mexico market with us. You know, people don't see us. They don't see Black artists. They don't see the things that we do until there's that cast call that says we need all the Black artists to come to the casting call. Or there's a whisper in the hallway, I'm gonna show some art over here, you wanna come? There's really not anything that we gravitate to or are asked to be a part of specifically, unless it's really something New Mexico needs. So this, I'm hoping, will give us a venture to display just how bad we are in all of these art fields.
Good to know. So you mentioned salon. For those who don't know what that is, what is a salon?
It's a big show off for the community. Look at what I'm working on, look at me. Look at what I'm doing, look at me. That's what a salon is. You can show your art, you can do spoken word, you can dance. It's all an event to display who you are and what you do for the community.
That's exciting. That is really exciting. Oh, wow. I get chills just thinking about it. Yeah.
So yeah, we need some people to start getting in contact with me. I have lists and names of folks I'm already starting with, but really, if you are in the diaspora of Africa range, you need to get, and you're an artist, you need to get a hold of me so we can get started.
Good.
We need to display our work.
Good. And we're looking at bringing a lot of this work into the Peace and Justice Center, where we've got our own little theater, and we have our own gallery. And this is the opportunity then for people to be able to step in and let's get this COVID business out of our lives so we can gather again. But in small groups, masked up, we can still get a lot of work done. I would certainly hope.
Well, that's what I've been hoping for. Why aren't we virtual like all the other people? And it is New Mexico. We could do so much and show off. Why not? So the Black Diasporic Arts Roundtable needs everybody who's in this field. You know, the only time we ever show out art-wise is at the fair. We need to do a little bit more than a fair.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad to see this happen, and I'm glad that we can open up the center and make it available, you know, for this to flourish. It's such good news. It really is. So tell us about some of the other things you've been doing. I know that you know, the entrepreneurial side. See, I said it right that time. The entrepreneurial side of Kareena Washington.
So I have developed a product line. It's been in the works for years. And the product line, I'm still working on a name of what I want it to be. But basically, it's all natural, all African natural products. So it's things that achieve African holism. And I use Yorishas as the product names. So you can, you know, get nice with Obatala, you can fire up with Shango, and you can bring out your inner diva with Oshun. And so the product line is lotion, body oil, bath salts, sprays. It's a whole soap. It's everything. So that smell sticks with you all day long. And so that's what I'm doing right now is I'm getting ready to strike out with this complete product line.
Oh, I'm excited about that. I really am. And in case these names don't sound familiar to you, you've got your homework cut out for you. You know, look them up and learn some things about the Orishas and those names and what they mean. You know, that is truly African heritage at its best. And I have to tell you, I did get this cream that every night, and my days average about 12 hours, sometimes 14 hours. And so I'm wired by the time I go to bed. And I take this cream and I just rub it all over my face. And inside of just a few minutes, I'm gone. I'm just gone, knocked out. And I appreciate that. It smells good. It feels good. It works great. It works great. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet dreams. That's what that's
Sweet
called.
dreams. That's what it's called. And believe me, I have sweet dreams too. Yeah. So what are some of the other things you're doing?
So speaking of the Peace and Justice Center, the summer program that I've been running for a few years out of the African American Performing Arts Center is going to move to the Peace and Justice Center.
Yes.
It is going to be there. So the summer cultural arts program that I do will be moving to the Peace and Justice Center. And I handle kids from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. And we do Black cultural arts along with STEM. So we're STEAM kind of doing things.
I like STEAM.
Yes, we're STEAM. Last summer we were Black pirates, and we learned about Black Caesar, and we did a lot of science and engineering programs and things that were centered around what would it be like to be on a ship as a Black pirate.
Wow.
And what would you do, and how would you be, and all those different things. So every project was around being a Black pirate. And so the kids would call me Black Caesar all the time. And our ship was called the Aurora Rose, and they named the ship. And we did all kinds of projects, from building boats to spy glasses to painting, everything. We did it all summer for 6 weeks. And at the time last year, it was free. So again, this year, I'm hoping that we can do free for the following summer and get some grants and things moving so the program can really get funded the way it needs to be funded. Last summer, I took in 30 kids. Wow. And we had free lunch through the city, and we did a lot of pirating. We tie-dyed shirts. We did everything. So that's what I do. The year before that, we were Black superheroes.
Fantastic.
So this gives kids, our kids, Black kids, the chance to really explore who they are and things that they didn't know. Like, they didn't know there were so many Black superheroes. They didn't know that pirates came in Black. They didn't know these different things. And so this program allows them to explore who they are, and then they get to understand the genius of mathematics and science and art and where they intersect, and they don't even know they're doing it. And we speak a little Swahili too.
I know. I walked into your classroom a few years ago, and they greeted me in Swahili, but I was ready for them because I greeted them right back in Swahili.
Yes, you did.
Yes, indeed. Good investment in our kids. I think that's such an important thing, because if you don't know your history, you just wander around lost, and that's not a good thing. So hats off to you, and thank you, Kareena Washington, for bringing this good news to us. And before we end, just a reminder, today, if you're watching this show, when this show ends, it's time for you to beat it on down to Roosevelt Park, because let me tell you about this voting rights business. The battle is still going on. The Civil War is still being fought in this country, and people are trying to deny us our voting rights. The House just passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill, but it's got to go to the Senate. And those senators are another set of animals altogether. We've got to convince them through our demonstration, through our marches, through our rallies, through the letters and the petitions that we send, that we are not joking around here, and we're going to hold them accountable. So the rally today is such an important step towards sending such an important message. And we've got a little piece that we want to share with you about today's event. Signs of protest, signs making demands, signs with messages to our members in Congress, signs especially for those difficult members of the United States Senate. These signs, these messages, and many more will be on display at the March and Rally for Voting Rights this Saturday, right here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We gather at 11 o'clock at the Center for Peace and Justice. We march to Roosevelt Park at Spruce and Cole Streets Southeast. We rally there to deliver our message. Many people will be speaking. Some will be singing. Some will even be reading poems of protest. This is what you'll see. Thousands of people gathered to deliver that message. Vote for the vote. End the filibuster. Tell Moscow Mitch to end his fascist ways. Tell the United States Senate to protect democracy by voting for the vote. Pass those bills. It's time, Congress, and we're here to remind you that we are watching.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Deep, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep, deep in my heart, oh, I do believe, yes, we shall all be free someday. We shall overcome voter suppression someday. We shall overcome someday.
I can't begin to tell you how many nights, how many days in my younger years, maybe 60 years ago, that I was in meetings that closed with us singing, "We Shall Overcome." It brings back such memories and yet reminds me of all the work that still has to happen. And doing some of that work is our next guest, Jay Wilson of Blessed, Black Economic Security and Solidarity. And this man is doing it. Jay Wilson, welcome to That Saturday Show.
Look, Jim, you're just saying that to gas up the fan base.
Oh, no, this is for you.
So, well, look, I want to say it's a pleasure being on the show today.
Thanks so much for being here. So tell us what Blessed is all about.
Absolutely. First off, BLESS is an acronym. It stands for Black Economic Security and Solidarity. But to tell you the basis of Bless, I think it's best to tell you my story.
Yes.
When I first came here, I came from Panama. So the biggest things that I wanted was a pair of blue jeans, some McDonald's, and a Nintendo, a Nintendo 64. But you know, as I grew over the years, I started to realize that, you know, the different opportunities that I came across, the different paths that I was able to walk in my life, it was more the exception than the standard. And oftentimes, believe it or not, Jim, you can kind of predict the direction and you can predict where folks will go in their life's journey because of things like a zip code, or because of things like where they go to school, or because of things like the different economic opportunities that they have offered to them. And so, you know, what me and my colleagues did one day, we were in our dorm room, not as flashy of a place like here. And there was something in my glass, a little spicy. But, you know, maybe it was the Hennessy talking to me that evening. But, you know, I was super excited. And I started to realize that at my university of Texas Southern University, in the heart of Third Ward of Houston, there were people right down the street who were never going to be able to enjoy that same opportunity.
Right.
You know, besides all the debt, which that's a whole different discussion. That was not going to be something that was made available to them. And so rather than, you know, use that knowledge, use those connections to just say, I'm done with this, let me move on, we said, how can we bless other people? How can we pass that blessing on? How can we build the communities with the people in those communities that they want to see? And that's how we came up with Bless.
You know, Malcolm X's when it said that our greatest challenge, you know, is not racism, but economics. And the more and more we look at it, you know, it's a combination of both, but economics certainly helps us get past a lot of the ugliness that challenges our lives daily in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's very interesting in this country because you can't discuss one without discussing the other, right? You know, when they brought us here, it wasn't because they thought, oh, well, you know, they're going to get the job done. No, they brought us here because we were initially commodities.
That's right.
But as the years rolled, we showed that we are so much more than that. And at the heart, that's what Bless is all about. You see, we don't just look at a client, or we don't just look at an opportunity and say, oh, well, this is going to return a profit, this is not going to return a profit.
Right.
Because that's the same game that's been used on us, right? and it hasn't worked to our benefit.
Yeah.
What we say is, look, what is the long term? What is the benefit for the community? What are the actual residuals? And if those are residuals that say we can provide safer communities, if those are residuals that say that folks can have more pride in their community, if those are residuals that say, look, this isn't somebody who is just gonna, you know, pack up shop and have to find another job, but they'll be able to pass something down to the next generation. That's the investment that we want to make. Those are the things that we feel confident in. And more importantly, that's where we can be more proactive rather than reactive in some of the structural harms that we see, not just here in Albuquerque and in New Mexico, but across our country, right? You know, we had a very, very talented gentleman who came up earlier before me, and he said, you know, that we have this dichotomy between crime and safety, right? And, you know, pay attention, because you'll see this coming up in the elections as we get closer. Folks are talking a lot about crime, but they're not talking about the disenfranchisement of opportunity, which in and of itself is a crime. They're not talking about, well, why did this young man or why did his dad feel compelled to walk this line, right? Because the only line that they want you to walk is single file within a prison. And I'll drop a statistic on you because you're a smart man and you like to get smarter, Jim. So,
oh, yeah. Tell me.
You know, I mentioned the Golden Arches when I first came here, so I'll start off with that. There are 425 banks in this whole state. But believe it or not, geographically speaking, you are more likely to run into a payday loan place than it is to get an extra large fry with an apple pie.
Wow.
You are able today, right now, to send you and your family backwards financially than it is to get a cheeseburger.
Good grief.
And with prisons, it's even more harmful with folks who look like you and me. A young African American is 6 times more likely to go to a private prison than a public university.
Those are scary stats.
They're scary stats, but those are the stats that we're living in. And what we say is this: Black isn't just beautiful, but Black is worthy. And so through the number of programs that we incorporate financial literacy. We work with folks who have ideas, who have visions, who have dreams, and we say, how can we make that a reality? And we work with folks not just here in New Mexico, but also further east in Texas. And also recently, we've been contracted to do some work up in Colorado. But we believe in this. We believe in the opportunity to build, not just as this one localized group, but as a community and as a nation. And I'll tell you this, Jim, it's really funny because this year, Juneteenth was made a federal holiday. Mm-hmm. So I can't tell you how many of my less melanated colleagues texted me and say, happy Juneteenth and happy Liberation Day. And what I was thinking was, well, thanks, but where's the check?
Right.
That's a holiday that comes with responsibility. And we as a nation, we as a community, we can't be scared to deliver on that responsibility. You see, enfranchising Black and brown communities doesn't just mean where can we put more cops at. That means how can we make schools better? How can we make the streets safer by making the businesses better? How can we break the dichotomy of just seeing us as a commodity and more as an actual component, a partner here in our communities?
Oscar Brown Jr. used to talk about, where's my 40 acres and a mule? And if you compound that with the interest, we'd be in really good shape if we had the value of that 40 acres and a mule today and knew how to use it.
Absolutely. And look, Jim, I'm not the IRS, so you don't have to be honest with me. But I imagine you pay your taxes, right? Or something like that.
I look for every opportunity to not pay taxes, but I always operate within the law.
Well, I'll tell you this, and I'll leave you with this last financial point. Every year, we in property taxes, we pay about $500 billion.
Yeah.
Black folks respectively, we pay about $156 billion. But we don't receive the same quality of services. Now, Jim, how many jobs do you think $156 billion every year can provide for?
That's a lot of jobs.
That's a lot of jobs.
That's a lot of jobs.
How much?
Oh, I don't know. Probably, a few million.
We're talking 4 million.
4 million jobs. See,
4 million.
Go. Yeah.
And it's not because these places, they're not effective. It's not because, they deserve it, as some folks would tell you. It's simply because they don't look white. And what we say is we're not scared to be that agency to want to say we want to build this environment. We want to build this ecosystem, right? We don't just want to have this one-off project. We want to build something that feeds and that nurtures. And that's what Bless is all about, Jim. Recently, we hit our milestone of raising a quarter of our goal. Our goal for this year is $100,000. We've reached about $25,000, and we're still
Fantastic.
Going.
Good for you.
And all the funds that's going right back to folks like you and the folks who in the International District and all across Albuquerque.
Jay Wilson, I'm so glad to know you. I'm so glad to know all that there is to know about Blessed. And I'm blessed to have you here today on that Saturday show. And for those of you who are out there in our viewing audience, you can be blessed too by getting in touch with Jay Wilson, and we can get a lot done, so much done. So just quickly.
Absolutely.
Solidarity in that name. Solidarity. Talk about that a little bit. We've got about a minute.
Absolutely. That's going to take a little bit more than a minute. But I'll say this. solidarity comes in the form of resolution. It comes in commitment, and it comes in shedding the fear of making sacrifice. Oftentimes, when we run up against the wall, when we run up against these hurdles, when we run into conflicts about our own internal biases, it's safe, it's comfortable to take the road less traveled and say that we're going to shed that bond, we're going to shed that commitment. But what I'm saying is this: whether your fight is economic justice, whether it's criminal justice reform, or even if you're just wanting to make it safe for your kids to be out there to play, make your schools safe for your kids to be able to study. We need to have solidarity, and we can't be scared to shed those barriers, to shed those walls, and to shed some of those outdated biases to help those grander causes and those people in need who may not get the grander platform to speak out on their issues. And so, Jim, that's solidarity.
I love that. Thank you so much. It's been an enlightening moment. Like you said, you just made me smarter.
No, Jim, smarter. Look, because if you say that, you got to put me on payroll.
Oh, yeah? All right. We'll talk about that later, okay? All right. Thank you, Jay. 43 states in this country are talking about ways to keep us from voting, ways to suppress the vote. 43. And as a result of all of that, the March on Washington that will happen today in Washington, D.C., has reached out across the country and asked other cities to create these companion marches like the one that's happening here in Albuquerque today as well. We've got to push back. Dr. King, Dr. King's son, Marty III, Al Sharpton, Dr. King's daughter, so many people have come together, and we are all standing in unity, in solidarity, Jay, to make a statement about voting rights. We're going to get this legislation passed. We have to. Democracy depends on it. And let's hear from Jessica with Sweet Georgia. Thank you.
Sweet Georgia, the ghosts are out, blind eyes and grinning faces under the swirling sheets of white and scarlet. Yes, I know, should be a nighttime story, should be a nightmare, but no, it's our reality. So they go over the streets and alleys, under the guise of rallies, compromising everything worth fighting for. They meet nowhere of poison, the marbles bare, guns frozen, sides already chosen. The ghosts are out, but some won't run away, when it seems history is here to stay. Some keep on sleeping, others dream it's safe to sleep. Some never sleep till they awaken their dreams. Sweet Georgia, sweet dreaming Georgia, we can breathe, Georgia. Yeah, you'll be on our minds. The gates are down, broken doors and disgraces. Phantoms come out creeping from their dark hiding places, and they know, but turn the other way. The twisted tongues, now they've got nothing to say, so they go. so we can sleep. The dreams awake, the nightmare breaks, and we believe. Thank God we can believe in sweet Georgia. Sweet dream in Georgia. We can breathe, Georgia. Yeah, you'll be on. You'll be on. 'Cause it's sweet Georgia. Sweet Georgia. We can breathe, Georgia. You'll be on, yeah, you'll be on our minds. You'll be on our minds.
The Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice has been serving the communities of Albuquerque for nearly 40 years. Peace and justice are the motivators for the work we do, in concert with dozens of other organizations and committees here and around the country. Whether the issue is nuclear weapons, or police brutality and murders, or homelessness and hunger, or even climate justice, immigration, and prisons, the center continues to stand shoulder to shoulder with community organizations dedicated to doing the good work, the necessary work. But we can't do it without your help. COVID didn't take a break, and we didn't either. And the financial cost of being strong advocates and providing assistance have not diminished. You can help us by becoming a member of the Peace and Justice Center for $40, or simply make a donation. You can also stop by the center and maybe purchase one of our popular yard signs to let your neighbors know where you stand on important social justice matters. We need you. Get in touch at www.abqpeaceandjustice.org or call us at 505-268-9557. Thank you for your support, and thank you for standing up for peace and justice.
Until the next time, it's time to say goodbye. When you out here in the streets, keep it real, 505. We love everybody, we just want to let you know. Thanks for tuning in to that Saturday show.